Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch, which, Ben, is ultimately our final episode for the summer series. How good's it been?
It's been great, mate. It's been
Transformation Central.
Yes.
Knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. Well, we've just showcased folks who are acting on it. And today is another example to finish our summer series of someone who has acted on it, Ben.
I can't wait, Bryce. Let's cut straight to the episode of our very special guest.
Oh, I like the way you built that up. All right, Ben, we've got a very special guest today.
We do.
Athena and Anca. First of all, welcome to the Property Couch.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're welcome, but this isn't the first time that you've actually been on the Property Couch, because if we sort of circle back a few episodes ago, Ben.
Oh, yes, of course.
I actually read out a couple of sort of Instagram messages that I had with Athena.
Yes.
About Off the Plan. So we're gonna talk about those sorts of things, but it's exciting to get someone onto our summer series who's prepared to be really brave and open about their story. So I'm really excited about unpacking yours, but we haven't said that for a while.
I know. There's a word we need to bring back into
the gold, unpack, exactly. But Athena, tell us a little bit about your backstory. Let's get our listeners to get to know you. What was money like in your house growing up?
Growing up? Well, we only got what we needed, not so much what we wanted. So we were always taught, we never got any pocket money or anything like that. It was just, do you need this? Yes, you can have it. And we just had enough. So it was quite nice growing up. And I think Ben mentioned that your dad was in the airline. So my dad was also in the airline. So we were always on standby, staff travel. So we did travel a little bit growing up. But other than that, money was, we were a simple sort of family, 4 kids. I'm the eldest. So it was always, never felt the tightness, but we had what we needed.
Would the youngest have said the same story as you?
Oh, no, we always have this joke.
You break all of the rules, and the young one just gets, gets a free ride.
Yeah, we warm up the parents, the eldest, and because we've got 3 girls, and then the youngest is the boy, so he gets to go to parties, go to movies with his friends. We were always we have to ask. And he's 25 now.
Okay, rightio. So, definitely out the other side. And where was home? Where did you grow up?
We grew up in the Philippines. So I came here when I was 8.
Okay.
And my dad came because of an airline job.
Yep.
We lived in the Sydenham in the west.
Yeah, good.
And then Ansett shut down.
Yes.
So we had to move to Singapore. So we had a nice time in Singapore for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then my parents thought, look, they want to send us to university in Australia, in Melbourne. Yeah. So let's
work our way back there.
Yeah. So we came back out and then we moved to the outer southeast.
Yep. And did Mum work as well?
Yeah. So she actually was the first one in the family who got the job selling house and land packages. And then I went into it too, part-time while studying at university.
So did she have a sales background, or how did she find
She had a teaching background as well. So we had a bit of a swap, because now I'm in teaching.
I was going to say, we haven't disclosed that yet, but it says teachers can't create financial peace. Yeah. We've got one sitting right here across from us. Well, a lot of people think, they are underpaid. We know that. They do an amazing job. And so this is the way in which you can supplement it in terms of investing and paying your money forward.
Yeah, over my journey, I've seen a lot of teachers being really open to creating wealth through property, because they do hit, you can confirm or deny, but they do hit some glass ceilings around around income. So they've got to be creative and do that. Hey, with your dad, you went Philippines, Australia, then Singapore. Did he get another job in the airlines to come back here?
He did. Yeah, he did. He was in Singapore Airlines there, and we had to move there because Singapore Airlines doesn't have a
everything's done in
head
Singapore.
Office. So he moved back here, worked for another airline in Australia, and I did the reason why was because he wanted us to do our VC here and then go to university in Australia.
Beautiful.
We were in an international school in Singapore, so all of my friends were going to universities all over the world, and one of the main ones was, or a couple of the main ones were in Melbourne. So they thought, look, if they're going to be doing that anyway, we may as well finish school in Melbourne and
come back down.
Yeah.
And are your mum and dad retired now, or are they still working?
No, they're still working.
Okay.
Yep. We have a bit of a joke. Jason, my husband, and I, we're trying to race them to retirement. Both his parents and my parents.
What, are you going to have 4 kids? Yeah, there we go. That's half the battle. No, they're still working.
Damien would have no. We've got to ask permission for no.
Hey, tell me. You said that when you were growing up, there was always enough. So just interpreting, like there was never a time when there was a lack. You're just there was always enough. And what sort of I guess lessons did that teach you at the time? What if there wasn't any discussion around it? How did you find out?
No, there wasn't. Yeah,
money habits going forward, particularly as you went through the life cycle, early childhood, then your first job. Did you spend it? Were you a hoarder?
Well, the main thing I suppose I learned was how to negotiate. We didn't get pocket money, so if we wanted something and it wasn't something that we needed and it was just purely I wanted Pokemon cards or something, we had to go, all right, Mum and Dad, how can I present? I've got to make a pitch to them, and this is why I need these Pokemon cards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that was one of the lessons I did learn growing up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so how was that sort of going forward in terms of, was there any legacy things that you needed to understand so that you could better manage your money, or was that what you were exposed to enough as you went forward to make your way financially in terms of making ends meet? Yeah,
well, when I met Jason, when we were, just going out, his parents are investors, so they own a couple of investment properties, and he always got the people would make fun of him and say, you are a tight bottom.
Yeah.
So that's when I sort of met him, and we both had part-time jobs, and here I was going, okay, great, I earn this much this month, and that's my spending money. Mm-hmm. So I'd go out and, it'd go down to zero, and then I'd meet people who'd go, or like Jason, I bought my own car. Like, I don't have a car. How do I do this?
Yeah.
So he was actually the money manager of the relationship, and even until now, he's the one
looks after the money smarts.
And I've learned a lot. Yep, he does. Yeah. And I've learned a lot. We had our own money smart system before adopting yours, which was actually quite crazy. We showed Damien when we met him.
Yeah.
And he was
for those who don't know who Damien is, no, that's all right. He's one of our property investment advisors. So yes, that's where the Damien picture comes in. Jason, Damien, who's who in the
We're just having a chat, aren't we? Having a catch up, yeah. So we showed Damien our our own system, and he was like, "Wow, you're tracking every single thing that you spend." Yeah. So I thought, oh yeah, this is what we normally do. And he said, you know what you can do? There's this thing called the weekly float. And he showed us all these hacks, and he does this awesome thing with Woolies online shop.
Yep.
So he's got a saved
5%.
He's got a saved list, so you don't go and buy, because groceries are essential things that you need. Quote, you need them, but chocolates is not. Ice cream or snacks.
We talk about that. Yes.
So he showed us, you can make a list and you just go click when you run out, and then you go pick it up.
It refreshes and you click and collect.
Yes, that's right.
And so just to finish off that story, what we're also talking about is the Woolies has a loyalty card and a card. So if you also set that card up, you get 5% off your purchase if you pay with that card, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people then get a 5% discount on that. So that is a money hack that a few of our members and the community are doing. So,
and it's got the Qantas flight point as well.
Correct,
will you
the frequent flyer points. Yes, if you're a traveller, that's also a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So can I just finish off the story of the family and the growing up and the backstory?
Sure.
Did you talk about money at home?
No.
Okay. So, and what about Jason's parents?
Yes.
Yeah. And so hence he's been able to adopt some of watch what they've done, and obviously is passed that on to his generation, which is you guys. So that's pretty cool. So there's a message there in terms of the households that do discuss money are usually pretty good at managing it, aren't they?
Well, we're quite open, and his parents and we are as two couples are quite open with, you know, we're not shy to sort of, in different conversational situations, like at the workplace, you know, you can't talk about, you know, taboo topics. Property, you can't talk about money.
Politics, property, religion and money. You just stand down. Maybe you can talk about nice properties. That's always good to talk about, but certainly no finance.
It's funny, you know, because I grew up in a family that didn't talk about money, right? But everything was always like I never felt any struggle. I never had any obvious.
That's right. Likewise.
Deficiency
like we were always sort of bottom end of middle class, but like there's never like we weren't scratching around to pay the bills or whatever. It's just always happened. But we never spoke about it, right? And so my wife and I bought our you know, we live down by the beach, so our Christmas present to each other is we bought a surfboard, right, between us. And Jack comes up to me and goes, "So how much was it, Dad?" And my instinct was to go,
none of your business.
It's actually none of your business, right?
That's your dad coming out. And
then I caught my dad, right? I was thinking, hang on a second. So then I actually told him, because we actually want him to know the value and how much it takes to go through. And so for me, it's been this unwinding process of actually undoing some of those rails that I find easy to stick on.
And now that you're older and mature, do you talk about money with your folks?
Sometimes.
Okay, so it's still limited.
Yeah.
Like, would you know their financial position?
No.
No. Yeah, and I think Australians need to get better at that conversation, right? Because I mean, I was with my folks over the weekend as well, and we were having a conversation about how, you know, I keep going at my dad, spend the money, mate. You can't take it with you. Like, I don't want it. So, you know, he's got mum and dad are pretty well off, but dad controls the money still, right? So mum's still got to, you know, see if there's enough there to give her allowance or whatever. I'm like, seriously? Like, you know, and so I push him every time I get to see him to sort of have that conversation. Because it's a really important conversation.
That's a pretty robust discussion between the two.
It goes all right.
Been privy to a couple of
Depends on whether I push his buttons or not.
Just, you know, which you do as a bit of a sport.
Sometimes it's fun. But, you know, especially if mum's around, she then sees that I'm, you know, championing her cause for a little bit more spare cash.
I can relate to that.
That's what it's like, right? And ultimately, you know, I've only got one brother. So, you know, and Jeremy's pretty well off. So from that point of view, there's no need for the money, right? So there's no expectation from either of us that we're going to get anything. So with that in mind, they should then make conscious decisions about how they travel, what class they travel, all of those different things is going to be part of that story. And so that's why I wanted to highlight that when families don't talk about it, because my dad is very traditional too. He wants to pass the legacy on. So part of the reason why he's worked so hard is because he then feels like he can give a gift down now. He set up bank accounts for our boys on both sides of the family. So our boys have a couple of $1,000s each in a savings account that he set up, and it gives him purpose. So I've got to be careful of that in terms of making sure I don't take away his purpose or the stuff that he thinks that is important. When you know, financially we're okay, right?
Yeah,
so
I could take some advice from that too.
That's the fascinating thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Whereas I'm sure Jason and their parents would have had the conversation around what's going to be bequeathed and all of that type. And we've had that conversation, and I encourage that conversation when the time is right to have those types of conversations. What's your intentions? Because if you share with your parents that the intention is you don't care, you don't want anything because you taught me how to fish. I now know how to work really hard, and I work really hard to get to where I've got to, so I don't need to rely on any inheritance. That should then take a little bit of pressure off them too, to know that if they do want to spend the down payment on the nursing home and how they want to, you know, finish off their lives, cool. So I do think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned that Jace was a tight-arse and you were quite liberal, right? You were a bit more... what's the right word?
And all his friends would know it, all his cousins would know it. We actually did, for our wedding, we had a little video and saying, you know, say some nice things about Jason. All his cousins, all the groomsmen, tight-arse.
So I had that in my wedding too.
So how does a TA merge with someone like you? What were those initial, because it sounds like you guys are on the same page now.
Yeah.
But take us back to the clunky days where you're like, what do you mean? And he's like, come on, rein back. What did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, we'd go out with family, with his siblings, his parents, and then it'd come time for everyone to pay for a meal.
Yeah.
So, his parents would go and pay, his sister and brother-in-law have a family, they'd go and pay, and then there'd be Athena and Jason. Yep, Jason pays for his and I pay for
so he didn't even cover you whilst he was courting you?
He'd cut a bit of slack for that, and then after that he's like, took it really personally, and he's like, okay, every time we go out for dinner I'm going to show everyone
that you've paid.
Yeah, so that was, we don't go out for a lot for meals, birthdays, special occasions, yes. Yeah. Just on a whim, sort of brunch. We do like to brunch at home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do like a bit of smashed avocado at home. On my page, I've got some avocado seeds growing on my plant Instagram.
That'll take a while, but there you go.
It's a long term. I'm thinking about it long term.
It's hot property. Thinking long term. So tell us what's the goal for you and Jason then? Because clearly there's a merging of money back stories here. We'll talk about your exposure to types of property in a second. But what's the goal? What's the vision? Because you're doing your own smashed avocado at home. You guys are clearly very careful with your money.
Yeah.
Where's the destination, and what does that look like?
We sort of think of retirement as, we don't want to really retire. We want to have the choice to work if we want. We think that, we don't want a lot of money. People go, oh, you just want a lot of money, you just want a big house. And no, not really. We just want choices.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we want to go, look, he loves his job. He's an engineer. He goes, I was telling Bryce before he's on site in Traralgon today, he likes it. He likes his job, and I like playing music and teaching music. Mm-hmm. So we like to have the choice to do that, but not so much, if we lost our job tomorrow, what would we do? We just like the choice. So that's our goal, which we spoke to Damien about. So we've now got an actual timeline, not sort of, we'll work towards the goal and see where we are in 5 years. We've got, a date now. And because I suppose he and I are very competitive, we're trying to race it.
Good.
So we've got our month-to-month...
the gamification, right? Yeah. That's the whole thing. If it changes behaviour, it's a good thing if it means you're going to get to where you want to get to. So
really and I think you mentioned one of the podcasts saying that a lot of people in your community are trying to get competitive about how low your weekly float is. And we're sort of like that too. We've got to have a bit of leftover in the weekly float plus the other leftover.
So talk us through the state of mind that you guys have now, knowing what your vision is, right? Because it's clear that you know what you're working towards. You've got a plan. It's step by step that out. What does it look like now compared to not having that sort of clarity of destination prior?
Yeah, so we actually did have a financial advisor in the very beginning.
Yep.
And she asked us, what's your financial goal? And now I could, go on forever about it and bore people. But at the time, we just wanted to release the security of Jason's parents' property on our home, which was a house and land package. Yeah, so we purchased that. We didn't want to pay LMI, and we were just paying down, like, after
tax. The parental guarantee that you would say, the 25% that you needed, which is stamps and that to get a transfer, 80% LVR, which would release their title from your obligation.
Yes, exactly. So we were doing that with our after-tax dollars, putting a bit of money in. So a year later, we were like, great, what are we on? So that financial advisor kind of looked at us like, okay, great, you just want to pay down $100,000? Easy. So a year later, we were down to, I think we put in about 40,000.
That's how much you paid down in 1 year, 100,000?
No, 40,000 in a year. Yeah. But we were a bit silly doing that because we went to get our house valued. Yeah. And if you remember, we said 430 it was, around about. And then the bank came back and said, well, now it's worth $640,000. So we looked at each other and went, why are we, and we're tight asses, right?
Yeah.
Why are we paying our 40K into this when you know, the property's doing all the work.
Yeah.
You know, we could buy a supercar now. No, not really. We didn't do that at all. So we ended up getting the house refinanced, and then that's what we used to buy the next property. So essentially we released Jason's parents' property, and then our PPR was now the security for our first investment property. But we thought, you know, like we could do it again. Why don't we buy a house and land package again and then do the same thing? It'll go up by, you know, 200K plus.
It's just a standard thing, right?
You know, like surely.
Happen once, could happen again.
But we thought, no, let's do a little bit of research. You know, he's got the engineer brain. Let's think about it. And I found the work of Phil Anderson, who does the cycles.
Yep.
So
that cycler.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, why did this happen to our house it was in Clyde North, our house and land package? Why did this happen then? And why is it not all the properties were doing that? What about the ones in Brisbane? What about, you know, and so on. Then we also found Heron Todd White, the property clock. And then we saw that different cities were at different places on the clock.
Yeah.
And then we found out that Brisbane might, you know, no one has a crystal ball, but we looked at sort of all the things that owner-occupier appeal, and for Brisbane, what do people want? They want proximity to the beach, CBD, you know, railway, public transport, all that infrastructure. Then we found your podcast, and then I started listening to all the things that started affirming. By the way, we found a lot of spruikers too along the way. But we found the podcast, and then we started listening from episode 1, and that was great. The first, and you always say the first 20 episodes, and that's your foundation. And I say it to everybody that goes, you know, how did you do it? First 20 episodes, go. So we picked somewhere else. We didn't do the house and land package again. We went for an established property, 600 plus metre block, and then we thought, look, that's great for capital growth. How can we get a bit of yield in? And we thought, okay, we can pick a council region that allows granny flats to be built on the back of properties. So we now thought, okay, we've got to pick a property that has a drivable side access, because that's what people want. What do people really want in the area? We don't live in Brisbane, we don't know. So we picked that regional area, or, you know, that region, that council area.
Within the greater Brisbane
area. Yeah, so it was we had a buyer's agent, so we got that pre-listing, like pre-market listing. A year later, we thought, oh, you know, we're still sitting on our hands with this PPR. We're still doing a long commute. What do we do next? You know, let's see if we can get another investment property, because we had saved all this cash up that we weren't now paying down, and we decided not to pay down loans anymore. We're not there yet. We're just accumulating.
So that first $40,000, did you put that into an offset? Or
that
did you put it on the loan?
$40,000 is in the loan.
Okay. So you hadn't.
We weren't learning. We weren't learning yet.
By that stage, you didn't know the benefit of the offset.
Oh yeah, now we're just offsetting, and it's
very good.
It's very tempting, because you could buy a supercar with the money that you've got in there. You know, after we've sold now
What's a supercar
PPR.
for you? What's the temptation?
Oh, you know, we've got old cars. Like, you see my car parked outside. It's an old car. We like old cars that we can modify.
Okay.
And that's our little
hobby
on the side.
Yeah. Okay.
So our supercar would be like, you know, an older supercar, you know, 1970s supercar.
Let's say over 25
like
years,
a Tirana or something like that. Or
Jason would love that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's all about the basketball, the NBA. Yeah. That's why Andrew Bogut, good job. And he's all about the cars. The older cars. So offsetting, we've got that set up now, and we bought the second one in Brisbane, and same thing, they'll be yield properties.
All right, so I want to cover off on a couple of things here. I want to get to the granny flats in a minute, because I think that's going to be really good. The first thing I want to talk about is the house and land. So you found yourself selling house and land packages. So tell us, because what sort of percentage mix were owner-occupiers versus investors who were coming out there to look at those particular properties for house and land?
There were a lot of first home buyers because they get the brand new, grant. At the time that I was working there, it was about 50-50, if not more, investors.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the attraction for the investor? Was it the depreciation and the tax.
Yes,
and that's
brand
the way.
New and
So what was your job to explain that to them when they came in to say?
Oh yeah, you've got to chat to every single person that comes in. You've got to get all the leads, and you've got to doesn't matter if they're from another display home, they're building with someone else. You've got to chat to every single one. And I would say I spoke to more investors, and there was this promotion that the builder that I was working for at the time had. That was a fixed price, fixed term build, so it would be built in this certain amount of time.
For this certain price.
You don't have to go pick colours. It's all a palette. You go and choose the palette that you want. And they loved it. And they thought, the colleague that I was working with at the time at a different workplace now, she was all over it. So she bought, I think, 3 brand new house and land packages at the time.
And how in your spiel, what are you talking about? Are you talking about depreciation, and are you talking about out-of-pocket expenses to hold these properties?
We're talking about the promotions that they create for these. Like first home buyers love the same. First home buyers and investors, I would say, had the same budget range. So you could do that spiel for both. However, that works for the sort of new estate area. So the builder also has an established estate. So in an inner southeast suburb, and they've got a display home there too, and that's for knockdown rebuilds or duplexes. So the spiel would be, hi, these are our promotions. The houses that you see here have this, this and this. If you are, and we'd have to identify if they were a first home buyer, investor. So we'd have to get a lead sheet. We have to get their phone number, email. And then we'd try and suss out a budget. So people don't like to be bothered, and I really don't like to bother people either. So they go, we're not ready for finance. So what's the solution to that? We've got a broker in the office. Go and have a chat to so-and-so broker. They can get you the best deal for the product that we've got, and we've got the price list for all the land, and the builders get kind of like a kickback for selling certain, so the promotion to sell land from different development estates, and they compete with what they want to, so kind of like, not really commission, but here's a prize for selling our blocks of land and not the other developers. So it's very a motivated way to sell things.
And so from that, I mean, what did you learn? Because as you say in your backstory...
we fell for it.
But I mean, yours turned out okay in terms of the capital
We
growth.
were very lucky in the cycle. But had we bought, I still know people that work in the industry that we're close with, and I say, how about the valuation, bank valuation that comes back? Does it come back equal or lesser than what their loan is, or the purchase price for their loan? And often it's less. So I say, what do? How do they get the cash for it? They take out credit cards. So it's all big
to not lose
family.
the deposit and to get over the line. And in your case, you were talking about how it peaked, and then obviously the valuation later that you went back to get obviously taken some beating in terms of that valuation as well.
So when we sold, we tested the valuation out in the market, and this was a year later after we got it valued for over 200,000, more than what we paid for. Had we just sold then and there, I think we'd be better off, but it is what it is. We sold later. And now at least we've got a goal now with Damien, so he's helping us try and get a little closer in. So we're actually rent investors at the moment. So we're renting a super convenient area. In fact, I was coming in this afternoon to come and meet you, and I thought, I've got to leave a certain amount of time. It's going to take me ages to get in.
You had plenty of time, huh?
So I was super early, and I was thinking, okay, I'll just sit in the car park and
chill,
twiddle my thumbs, and
should come up,
have a look at sports cars or
exactly.
Supercars or whatever.
So fast forward to now, you've got properties. Ben alluded to it before. You're looking to turn apples into apple pie. So you want to add value to what you've got, so you can create an income stream. So tell us about that.
So the granny flats will be our cash flow. So I think when we were doing our plan, we sort of thought about getting that borrowing capacity, because if we want to, our next immediate step is to buy in the area that we're renting. And, you know, mistakes that have gone, we can't do anything about that now. You know, it is what it is. We talked about getting the borrowing capacity up a little bit. So we sold our PPR and then we wanted to sell one of the investment properties, and we thought, I think there'll be our retirement ones, our retirement yield properties. So what we'll do is, so the granny flat at the back, we'll try and, one of them actually doesn't have a drivable side access, it'll be a pedestrian access. But working with the agents in the area, what do the tenants want? What will they pay for it? Is both the vacancy rates, and that's one of our motivations for picking those suburbs, were both under 2%. So if we've got a tenant moving out, we'll try and get one in as soon as possible. Same thing with the granny flats. They've given us pretty good feedback of other granny flats, there are other clients that have done the same. So it seems to be something that's quite popular in the area. People are figuring it out. So yeah, they'll be our income streams for retirement, but we'll still, I think we'll still be working.
So for context for the community, how much was the typical granny flat worth, and what sort of configuration is it? Is it a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, sort of dining? Or so tell us a little bit about what you're paying.
So they will be, it's around the 120 to 130 mark for granny flats, and that'll be with a driveway, a little carport, because I think that's important to. We've researched that's important to tenants. A drivable, like as I said, side access. So it'll have a little decking area, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, little living space. Fenced
off privately from the main. So so what people need to understand, and this is not a subdivision. You're not subdividing the land, but you are fencing off an area, as opposed to what a traditional granny flat is, which is like where the kids go out to. It's it's a retreat, or it's the grandparents are out there, hence granny flat. So, but this in this particular case is just basically you're going to harvest the land a little bit more without doing the cost of the subdivision. You're going to put this side driveway in or walk access. And so for $120,000, what sort of rental income do you expect to get on a property like that?
So it depends on the proximity to CBD, proximity to beach. So we've picked each property to be one close to the beach, one close to the city. So the granny flat, they think, will be around the 300 mark.
Okay. For the two-bedder?
Yeah, for the two-bedder. The main house at the moment, both are renting between $340 to $370.
Okay, great.
So I think they'll go down $15-20 a week. But the loan, I mean, they'll be positively geared. So yes, we will be paying tax.
That's good. Not a problem.
We don't mind paying tax.
That's right.
Anyone who's paying taxes is making money. So that's a good news.
So on the north side or the south side of Brisbane? North side?
It has to be the north, because the south, within that city council, they don't allow those kind of subdivisions. So we had to think, you know, a few steps ahead.
And when you're thinking of the beach, you're talking about the sunny coast?
I'm talking about the Redcliffe Peninsula.
Okay. All right.
So still both in Brisbane. But both north.
So positives are, you know, as you say, if it's a long-term hold and you're just going to be deriving income from that, tick boxes, move on, you know, rinse and repeat. The challenge you have got is obviously what we talk about, and we talked about before on the show, is that it will impact potentially the resale value.
That's right.
Because the new audience of buyers may not necessarily want to have half of their backyard taken away and what have you. So the fact that you've made a conscious decision that these are longer term investments, and you're going to derive the income from that, sort of plays that out. So as long as you're conscious that it might impact on capital growth. But again, you're hoping that through your planning work that you've done, that you've got your big rock in the jar being your new family home a bit closer in. But this is also going to be supplementing that to get the borrowing power up that you need to buy something that's closer to Melbourne, that has a bit of land content, which you are going to enjoy, hopefully great, strong capital growth that in 20, 30, 40, 50 years you might downsize from, and because that's your principal home, it's going to be capital gains tax free. So I think, you know, as long as people understand the pros and cons of doing these types of activities, and it works perfectly for your situation, because you're saying, we've got these two, we've sold our principal home, we're rent vesting, we want to build these up, get the cash flow strong, get both of our combined incomes, buy our dream home, put that block in the dirt, you know, and that big rock in the jar, And then ultimately we can then potentially buy one or two more, I suspect.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's like you've read my property plan. It's there.
Funny that. Well, the team here, I think I get to see a few of them.
As long as the dream home has a garage bin for these supercars.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
It's like you've chatted to Jason already.
Yeah, he's sent me a little message. Hey, what would you say to people who are listening to this, going, "Oh, all right, that sounds." But they're a little bit nervous about taking the first step, whether it's understanding what an offset account is, or implementing money smarts, or building a plan, or buying an investment property. What advice would you give them based on your own experience?
Oh, it's funny because you want to give advice, but then you never get the chance to, because you've got to. I think it was Victor August. You had a couple of years ago, and he said you've got to talk to. That's right, yeah. And he said you've got to wait for people to be ready to ask for advice. So no one's really ever asked me.
Students ready.
So here you're giving some great information today, though, which is great.
So are you saying within your circles, it's not it's through your social networks? It's not something you guys talk about?
No, not at all. Yeah. Advice-wise, I think do your research. I suppose, or I should just say, listen to the first 20 episodes of the podcast.
Yeah, you've been very generous. I do agree with you. They should listen to the first 20 episodes, but but in terms of the mindset around taking that first step for you.
Yeah, I think it's switching, knowing the habits. James Clear talked about habits, so I think we didn't know, or I definitely didn't know I had those habits, or spending habits, or no money habits, really. So I think that's the first sort of thing to get your head around, was getting those habits all in order, and then acting as quickly as possible. The one thing I sort of wish I'd done is start earlier. Get the big rock in the jar first, because now we're going backwards. We've got the little rocks in there, but big rocks, but that's how it turned out, and we still work with it. We could just go, done with it. We'll sell everything.
But you've chosen
start
to.
Again.
The good news about your story is you've also made a conscious decision that after your first one, which again I think you referred to as being lucky, timing it, you didn't really know what you were doing, but you were about to potentially push the button again. You did a little bit of initial research, and then what that led you to was, you know what? There's potentially professionals out there that might know a little bit more about this subject matter than I do, or that we do. And you've used a buyer's agent, and you used a property investment advisor as part of building out your plan. Now, what I am noticing though is you guys are doers, and so now that you've got that roadmap, that pathway, you're getting on with the job. Right, and you've gamified it a bit. You've made it up as a challenge, so that's also changing behaviour, and it's those types of things that are going to yield you a great outcome, Anthea. So I think from that point of view, you should be high-fiving yourselves, because that's the big part of the message here. Now, whether people are doing it by themselves, great, but you're using a lot of the knowledge. But as a school teacher and a music teacher, you know that I can't pick up a guitar. How are you going with your guitar lesson?
Well, all right,
that's good. Anyway, I just thought, what?
Well, that was an unprovoked attack.
It wasn't an attack. I just thought it was a great little segue.
Yeah. Maybe the folks can see the look.
It's hard.
It is hard, mate. The fingers are copping it.
There we go. So it's hard. But you know techniques and processes and things because you've walked that path before. And you pass those on to your students in terms of teaching them how to read music and play music. So you've taken the advantage of using professionals to do that. But at some point in time, you'll be able to play your own music, and the same sort of thing in terms of if you've got to buy, the fourth or fifth property into the future, you might be able to do that one yourself because you've taken the advice when you've needed to, you've got the education you needed, and you can take the confident step forward. You can still outsource it if you want to, but I think that's a message for all the community in terms of you've got to do the research, and you've been able to do that, and then you've got to have a conscious decision with yourself. Am I going to be better in terms of doing this than someone who might do it professionally or full-time?
Yeah, I suppose not sort of reinventing the wheel and just finding what in summary of everything you said is 100% on the ball. That's great,
Final one for me is your husband's an engineer.
Yeah.
Loves the detail. Could be perhaps paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So was that the case, and how did you overcome that?
I think so. I think it is the case now. So we're looking for our PPR. So we're rent vesting at the moment. So we're renting in a very convenient area. We love it, and we're analysing, like over-analysing every single thing. Does it have a garage?
yeah.
Does it have space for, you know, a workshop or that sort of thing? And we are experiencing that now for sure. He wasn't as involved. I suppose I was very good at pitching because growing up I had to, you know, persuade mum and dad to buy the Pokemon cards. So I was very good at going, okay, Jason, this is, let's go with this property plan, these properties, granny flats and so forth. He wasn't much of a researcher in terms of the property, but, you know, I pitched it to him. Now he's getting involved. He's seeing this working. And he's thinking, oh, you know, this property's for me. It's now for us to live in. So we are definitely feeling the analysis paralysis.
Well, and full respect to our engineering buddies who listen to this, Ben. It's just over 20 years. I've seen a lot of engineers.
They just want to know how things work.
They do.
And it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah.
So if you're an engineer listening to this, you're not alone.
We love you.
Yes.
Yeah, we love...
Don't write into me, I get it. I might have offended you.
We like to make the invisible visible.
Yes.
That's pretty simple. Us engineers, we do. Now, in terms of my final question...
Did you say us engineers?
You know, people who engineer money.
Yeah, okay.
We're engineering money. My bad, I need to qualify that. No, I'm not a qualified engineer.
I'm a numerical engineer, mate. That's
a numerical engineer.
Degree,
yes. Good point, there you go. So I'll stand out.
My first job was transportation engineer.
Very good.
I pushed the trolleys at Woolworths on a Thursday night. So, yeah, that's okay, I'm an engineer.
Very good. My last question was around your money smarts, and when Damien showed you that you didn't have to track every dollar, are you still tracking every dollar?
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
so you've got some time back. Yeah. So Jason's got some time back from not tracking every dollar.
Yeah.
Just simple.
Very simple. Extreme. Yeah. We do the weekly float works great.
Yep.
In fact, sometimes we forget it's Thursday and we go, oh yeah, that's
There's
right.
The money.
We're thinking, oh no, we've spent it all. Oh, we didn't top it up on Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have an auto top up, or you just
no, we don't. I didn't know you could do that.
Auto top up. Auto top up. Yeah, just set it up.
But we get competitive, so we might not do our normal amount. We might go down to 80 or 100 a week or something like that. So
interesting.
There we go.
We don't want to be tempted to spend.
So
gamifying money.
How much in front are you of the target then? Would you say at any point in time?
I haven't checked this month.
Yeah.
But I think it's around 20. I mean, we did our tax return quite late.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we've got a fair bit of negative gearing still applies.
Yeah.
And I think it's about 20 or 30k ahead now. So I haven't told Damien, he's on holidays.
Yeah, he's
having a great holiday.
He is.
So right. So you're 20.
Yeah.
It just leaves you 10 in the kitty. Just kidding.
Exactly.
Full transparency, husband and wife. Full transparency.
Yes.
Don't want to don't hoard money from each other.
No.
Yeah.
Bad habits.
Well, congratulations. That's coming from a story of moving around, obviously from the Philippines to Australia and to Singapore and back. And so with some of the lessons that you learned, and then meeting Jason, who sort of talked about discussion, there's so many layers to your story, but ultimately the best part about your story is you're clear about where you're headed, you've taken positive steps, you've actually done an after-action review around what could I have done better in that scenario, and pivoted and moved forward. So there'll be a lot of people that listen to your story and think, wow, there's something, at least one or two things in there that they might be able to use for themselves to actually move forward. But in our summer series, it's all about the theme of people who act on it. You know, Ben says knowledge is empowering, but only you act on it. So the fact you've acted on it and you put it in place, and I think you guys will definitely get those muscle cars. You'll definitely. This is for Jason. You'll probably get the shed.
About the delayed gratification, isn't it?
There it is. Choices. You said it earlier.
Yeah.
You just want choice later in life. Want to keep working, so you can have more of the supercars.
Exactly. Congratulations. Thanks again for coming on the couch.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're an absolute
credit
inspiration story. Yeah, well done. Mate, transformation. Get those cars in the garage. That's important, but they are very, very detailed and ordered around making sure that they are gamifying, Ben, the race to retirement with the folks.
Bryce, a few takeaways for me. First one is it doesn't have to be the set formula, which means you don't have to put the big rock in the jar. They said if they had their time over again, a little bit more knowledge, they would have been able to act in a different way that they didn't act. So effectively they're doing a bit of rent vesting, but are going to circle back and put the big rock in the jar. So it just goes to show you that property investing isn't just about the investment properties. It's also potentially about building the property ladder, getting to that final destination, which is that nice property. Also, you know, even though they were sounding like they're going to retire a little bit earlier than most, a retirement was going to be a choice for them.
Yes.
And they like that idea of having the ability to choose their future in terms of what that looks like. So a couple of good takeaways.
I like it, Ben. Turning apples into apple pie. They want to actually increase the yield on their land, so they've gone into the granny flat space, which we obviously talked about the pros and the cons around that. We've got an engineer brain, so paralysis by analysis, and unpacked that and what that actually looked like. And Ben, we are the insider's guide to property finance and money management, and Athena had the insider's guide to brand new product, having worked there. And not only using her own words, she goes, I still fell for them. So I knew the tactics, and I still fell for them as well.
It's a compelling story. And for anyone who's going to buy out there, I would say if that's the lifestyle you want to have, terrific.
Yes.
But if it's not, and if it's a stepping stone, then obviously there is risk of oversupply, and there's always incentive selling that happens out there. And the final one for me, Bryce, was around, you know, Jason used to track every dollar. Very time-consuming.
I saw your eyebrows rise when that happened.
Now, they basically have worked to a 7-day float, living and lifestyle account, and they're not worrying about tracking that.
And they're in front of the 7-day float.
Yep, and they just track the ad hoc spending as opposed to the frequent or regular spending.
Love it.
Part of the Money Smart system.
Athena, well done. Thanks for being brave. She was a little bit nervous at the beginning, but I thought she did remarkably well in making sure that she was able to share her story of transformation and see what they're doing so that people could try and emphasise. So a couple of things, Ben. I want to thank Athena for coming on today, but I also want to thank each and every single one of our guests, Ben. Brave souls, courageous souls who were prepared to come and talk about some of the stuff that we needed to shine a light on, Ben. Do you talk about money in your household? What was it like growing up? All those sorts of things for the benefit of our community to learn so they can have a much more prosperous 2020. They can trap more surplus in 2020, Ben. And ultimately, it's our hope that if you're trapping surplus, you do one of two choices. One is on lifestyle, which we hope you don't do, and the other one is planning a little bit for delayed gratification and building a bit of a future. And so obviously they showcase what that looks like. So hopefully they act as case studies, role models, the pathway for people to do really, really well this year in 2020.
I love the fact that people are paying it forward, Bryce. I mean, if I was to close it out, paying it forward, and we just hope that you take some confidence out of the stories that you heard and how they relate to you, because it doesn't matter what situation you're in now. It's the destination that matters. Once you change your habits and behaviours, you too can be on the pathway to financial peace.
You can, Ben. And remember, the destination is not the only main game in town. It's enjoying the journey along the way.
Correct.
Because most people, Ben, when they want to desire financial freedom, it's usually so they can get some form of experience. So that experience means that they can form some form of emotion, which is a feeling they want to have. So remember, if you're grateful for everything that you've got now, you can actually experience that feeling nice and early. So folks,
beautiful.
We hope you have a wonderful 2020 as we finish off our summer series and launch into it next week. But Ben, until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
Only if you act on it, folks. See you next week. Hey there folks, Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listened to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarises the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.